Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. So the next sequel that we're going to be covering is Meet the Fockers, the sequel to Meet the Parents. And man, me and Jamie just recorded this review, and this movie is so nostalgic to me. It was one of those pre-owned or pre-rented Hollywood video specials that I got for like 4 for $20 with other ones. And I remembered a lot of the lines, and it was a blast to talk about. And this week's interview is awesome. I interviewed actor Jack Plotnick in Meet the Fockers. He has a very small role, but a funny story about it. You know, working with Ben Stiller, he plays the role of the car rental agent. But man, Jack is so funny and is in so much over the years. Even during our conversation, there were things that he was talking about that I'm like, oh, that was you? Like, he started off on Conan O'Brien. He was like the internal organ man, one of the characters. He had some great stories about, you know, working with Bob Odenkirk, Janine Garofalo, Ellen, his audition for Seinfeld and being, you know, the leader of the Sunshine Carpet Company in that episode. His time on Buffy, the movie Rubber. If you've seen that, you know about it. If not, you got to YouTube it and watch that trailer and watch the whole movie. And then also Jack's movie Space Station 76 with Patrick Wilson, Liv Tyler, and so many more great people. Man, he talks about how he turned that from a sketch that he wrote a while back, and then years later he turned into a full feature movie, got Patrick Wilson on board, and it really changed everything for him. Great chat. I'm going to put any of the links about anything that we talked about in the episode notes. And be sure to check out Jack's hilarious YouTube channel. I'll also put that in the notes. So you can check out Space Station 76. So much fun. Dark comedy. You're going to love it. And you're going to love Jack. So without further ado, here is actor Jack Plotnick.
How was your Labor Day weekend?
It was pretty good. How about you?
It was lovely. Thank you.
Nice. Did you stay out there, or did you go like back? You're from Ohio, right?
Yeah, I don't get back there enough, so I was just here.
That's cool.
I do love visiting. And you're in New Jersey. I was born in Somerset, New Jersey.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Was it Robert Wood then, or wait, no, that's not Somerset.
Is that the name of a hospital?
Yeah, I don't know. They could have changed it from when. Do you remember the name of it?
No, not at all. We moved away really soon after.
Okay. Are your parents from Jersey?
They were in Brooklyn, I think, or Brooklyn, and then they moved to Jersey but didn't stay long.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's usually if you ever see those polls or anything, Jersey's the state that everybody's leaving.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Dear.
It's a cost of living in taxes, but we actually just moved back. We were living in Oregon and Portland for a few years, but
oh, that's a wonderful place to live.
It's the best, yeah. But we just had a baby and we're getting ready to start a family, so we're like, you know, it should be nice to be like closer to family.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I'm sure. Okay, I am all set to go whenever you're ready.
Sweet. Like I mentioned before, we believe that everybody has a story, obviously. So where does your story begin? Where did you grow up?
It's kind of weird because I know you say that, but I don't actually have a story. I literally appeared in my apartment this morning, completely oblivious to where I'd been before then. And I don't know if it's that I got too drunk yesterday or if maybe I'm an alien or a robot. Look, I mean, it's really a big question mark in my mind. If you can help me out, or maybe your viewers could write in. If anyone knows where I came from. No, I'm kidding. I grew up in Ohio, in a city called Columbus, Ohio, and was super into doing theater. And I would just literally stop my elementary school and force the entire 5th grade class to watch me do like my own parody of a Saturday Night Live sketch. And the teachers just let me do it.
That's awesome.
So that's where I started, and now here I am in Los Angeles, and I've been working as a TV film actor for about 23 years.
Do you remember like the Saturday Night Live sketch or like what performer?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It was the Weekend Update. I guess I must have been really into it, and I would like find pictures from, you know, the local paper and like make fun of them the way Weekend Update did. And
That's
I actually
awesome.
auditioned for Saturday Night Live. I did a sketch show on MTV called the Jenny McCarthy Sketch Show.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I loved it. And after that, I had this terrific reel full of sketches, and Saturday Night Live asked to see me. I actually auditioned the year Jimmy Fallon got it, and there was no beating Jimmy Fallon. I mean, I can't even do impressions. They're the worst. So, but I was up on the stage and everything. It was really cool. Very terrifying.
I bet you that was pretty surreal. Do you remember what Weekend Update anchor it was? I'm trying to think who would, maybe Kevin Nealon?
Well, it gives away my age, but when I was in 5th grade, it was probably still the, Jane Curtin, Chevy Chase,
No way.
Yeah. I mean, that's the first Saturday Night Live I remember watching was the original cast.
You look super young.
Oh, I appreciate that. I am not.
So that's cool. So you were performing, you performed those sketches for folks.
Yeah. So I guess I first fell in love with TV, but then there was, I was from Ohio. I didn't know how the hell to be an actor on TV. So in 6th grade, the high school performed the musical Oklahoma, and I saw that and I thought, oh, well, then this is what I'm going to do, because this I can do in Ohio. And so I became like a musical theater kid and just did theater nonstop, community theater and high school theater. And and it was so because that's all I knew. And so I actually even went to a conservatory theater training program and thought I was going to be like a musical theater performer on Broadway. And then I realized, oh, I can't dance. And then I luckily kind of through a series of things that happened, kind of fell back into TV and film, luckily.
So did you ever do any improv at all?
Yeah, as a kid, no, very little. Why do you ask?
No, I was going to say, just given your background, like even sketch performers most of the time have some kind of improv. You audition for SNL. You would pitch ideas to like Reno 911.
Yes, I did. Okay, so I thought I was going to do musical theater in New York. That's where I was. I was doing theater, but I started doing this sketch show with a friend. And that's when I realized, oh, like I'm happier doing this sketch show in the basement of this restaurant than I am performing at this dinner theater. And so, when you write a sketch show, you're all just sort of improvising. And I guess that's kind of where I first started improvising, because that's kind of how we would create the sketches. But I was never part of an improv group.
Okay.
I never trained at improv, because I don't think you need to train to do improv. It's easy. It's fun. It's more about letting go of your fear. So anyway, when I moved to LA, shortly after the Jenny McCarthy show, I got an audition for a TV show by the people who did Reno 911, but before they did that show. And it was the best show ever. I was a series regular. We did a pilot. It wasn't an improv show. It was written, but each person played several different characters in a small town. So that show sadly didn't get picked up, and I moved on with my life. And then literally the next show those kids did, the Reno people, was the pilot for Reno 911. And, there was just no role for me in that. And so I wasn't in that pilot, but that's the one that went. And, but they liked me from doing their other pilot. So they brought me in. They just said, what do you want to do? Literally just, what do you want to do on Reno 911? And I had a few ideas, but my favorite was the perverted guy with the mustache. Like I just loved being him. And that's the one that ended up catching on the most. I did that, I don't know how many times, a lot of times on Reno. And it was always just a blast and also a little terrifying. And they loved that character, and it was always really fun to do it. And then for the Reno 911 movie, they wanted me to do the movie, and I was so sick. I could barely talk, and my scene took place in a swimming pool that was freezing cold. So it was a really ugly day for me, but my scene came out okay, but they cut a lot of stuff. They filmed way too much for the Reno 911 movie. And I think you can see my scene in like the DVD extras, but I'm not in the actual movie set.
Oh, really? Okay.
But it was probably not my best work. As I said, I literally had the flu and was in a freezing cold pool. it was not fun.
So let's go back a little bit. Do you remember what your first job ever was acting?
Well, I mean, I want to skip the New York part of my life, and we'll just stick with LA. And what happened was I was off doing theater in some city somewhere. It was the last theater show I ever did. And kind of in the middle of doing that show, I had already, go back. That was the first job I got. I was about to tell you the first job I got in Los Angeles, but no, this is a better story because it's the first TV job I ever got. It was insane. I was doing a sketch show with my friend, as I said, kind of realizing that sketch comedy was really my love. And Conan O'Brien, Late Night with Conan O'Brien had probably pretty much just started, and they were like looking for interesting characters. And this guy wrote this character it was a parody of Slim Organ Body, who was a children's entertainer who wore a bodysuit that had pictures of internal organs on it, as if you could see through him. And he would sing and dance and teach kids about their inside. So he made a parody character called Slim. Oh, sorry, that guy, the real guy was called Slim Good Body. And so the parody character was called Slim Organ Body. And I got the role, and it was a guy who was a frustrated performer whose insides he was born with his insides on the outside. So instead of photos, they had real organs, like, fake, but it's as if his organs were outside his body. So he was miserable and angry that he had to be a children's entertainer. So the very first TV job I ever got was filmed live in front of millions of people. And it was absolutely terrifying. Oh my God. Yeah, I'll never forget how terrified I was standing backstage at Conan O'Brien, right behind the curtain, hearing them introduce me. Never had done TV, and suddenly in front of millions of people live. It was really, exciting and horrible.
I'm looking at the photo of it. It looks hilarious. You had like brain popping out of your head and all the taped on like rubber plastic organs. That's awesome. Yeah,
I would always like sing and dance and sing some terrible song, and then he would have me sit down on the couch and talk to me, and I'd always get like angry and start screaming and then break down sobbing. That was just kind of how it went. And I did that about 9 times maybe, and because I had done that, there was a pilot that Andy Dick was in. I don't know if you remember the comedian Andy Dick.
Oh yeah.
Bob Odenkirk starred in it and wrote it. Who plays Better Off Saul?
Yeah. From you were on Mr. Show with him.
Yes, and he was doing this pilot for HBO, and Andy Dick couldn't do it, so they needed kind of like somebody to fill those shoes. And Bob was friends with the guy who wrote my character on Conan O'Brien, and he suggested me, and I sent a tape in, and I booked it off the tape, and I flew to LA, and that was my first LA job. And I'll never forget my first shot in the show was opposite. I had a little scene with Bob and Janine Garofalo, and we had done the scene in the wide shot where you can see all 3 of us, and then it was my turn to do my very first close-up in my very first TV pilot. And I'm talking to Janine Garofalo's character, and, she's off camera, and there's a close-up on me. They say action, and as I'm saying my lines, she's making funny faces at me, like trying to like, I don't know what, trying to, I guess, just fuck with me or make me laugh. And I just, it was an interesting way to begin. And I was so not ready for that, because I'm this young guy totally taking this all way too seriously, I'm sure, terrified and wanting to get it perfect. And then there's Janine Garofalo just like going, but I really liked her. She was awesome, and I haven't seen Bob or Janine in years, but I'm very thankful, for him starting off my career, because without that, I don't know that I ever would have gotten to work in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I talked to, it's funny that you say that story, like Janine Garofalo doing that to you. I interviewed a guy, Jason Kravitz. He's been in like a bunch of TV shows, but one of his first roles ever, he was in Major League 2, and talked about when he filmed this scene with like Corbin Burnson, who, the guy was on so many big shows. I think it was like LA Law, like serious actor. He said off camera, the same kind of thing. He was like making faces at him and like busting his chops. And he like didn't realize that it was like Jason's first ever time on camera and he was already super nervous. But he said he was so
Yeah.
nice to him because they just shot like just them two. But that's really cool.
Yeah. And then I'll never forget that. No, that was the HBO pilot called Life on Mars. I'll never forget. Bob Odenkirk and I were on one of the lots, like Warner Brothers or something, probably rehearsing for this pilot. And he was like, "Oh, you want to meet my pal Chris Farley?" And Chris Farley from Saturday Night Live. And I was thrilled because I really looked up to him and thought he was brilliant. And Chris was, I guess, filming one of those movies he did with David Spade. And he was in this little trailer they give you, except this was more like a box, like a little box that has a couch inside and an air conditioner. Anyway, so we knock on the door and Chris Farley opens the door and collapses back on the couch. And we're like, it was an oven in there. It was unbearable. Like you couldn't live in this heat. And Bob was like, "Chris, what are you doing?" He's like, "I don't know. It's just so hot in here." He hadn't turned on the air conditioner. It was the middle of summer. And he was just sitting in this box with no windows cooking. So anyway, that's just whatever. I always think about that when I think of Chris Farley, because it was so strange that he hadn't noticed that he was in an oven. But I've seen him perform live, and there was just nothing like it. It was like, I'm sure the way that people talk about Jim Belushi, it was like, he was just this force, Chris Farley, and absolutely brilliant. And you felt excited and nervous when he'd be on stage because you knew anything could happen.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. So one of the credits that I wanted to ask you about, because I love him, is so you were on the Weird Al show.
Yes, and you know what? He deserves every bit of love that you give him, because
I love him.
He was really one of the absolute nicest celebrities I've ever worked with. It was incredible. I've luckily never had to work with anyone awful, but there's a few that come to my mind as just the nicest celebrities. And he's up there at the top. Renee Zellweger, also Jerry O'Connell and his wife, Rebecca Romaine. That's probably, and then of course my cast. I wrote and directed a movie called Space Station 76, and every actor in that movie was a dream to work with. Patrick Wilson, Matt Bomer, and Liv Tyler. Because, they were working for nothing, and they just loved the material, and we had the best time together.
Is that the first? Have you always written, or was that like the first thing you had written?
Well, I'd always written like sketches and comedy shows. I'd never written a movie, but this movie was based on a comedy show that I wrote with a group of friends, and the script to the movie was basically the show, and then I adapted the show into a film, and then directed it, and so that's my baby, Space Station 76. I also wrote a Broadway musical with my friend Seth, who I started off with in my 20s when I was doing sketch, was with my friend Seth Rudetsky.
Oh,
and
wow.
Years and years later, we wrote this musical that we never dreamed would go to Broadway, but after it went to off-Broadway and then Broadway, and I got to direct it on Broadway. It was really a thrill. That's called Disaster. It's a 1970s disaster movie musical with all hit songs from the 70s.
That's pretty awesome. When did you write the sketch that turned into Space Station 76? Do you remember around what year that was?
Oh, boy. I think probably around 2000, 2005, 2010, somewhere around there. And we spent about 3 months improvising in my apartment to create this play. It was like a comedy play called Space Station 76, and I would record the improvisations and type out the best stuff and then hand it back to the cast. And that's how we created this play, and it ran in LA for a while, and people really liked it, and they all went off and lived their lives. But I knew it could be a great movie, so I did that work to make that happen, and couldn't believe I got the cast I got. But it was incredible.
Is that surreal? Like when you were like sending the scripts out, or however the process was?
It is surreal. You're like, you can't believe that you got it happen. And at the same time, it was all so hard and took so much work that in a way you really feel every moment of it.
Yeah.
But Patrick Wilson was the first one to sign on. I knew him through a friend.
He's awesome.
And yeah, he sure is. Because if the movie wouldn't have gotten made if he hadn't been the first person to say yes. That's always the hardest thing, to get that first person, But he we went to the same school, not at the same time though. And I guess he had respect for what I had done up until then. And he's amazing in the movie. He plays a closeted captain of a spaceship, as if Captain Kirk was in the closet. And he's really funny and alcoholic and depressed. And the character keeps trying to kill himself, but the ship won't let him. Like, he's in the bathtub and he drops a plugged-in radio into the bathtub, and the ship senses it, so it shuts down the electricity in his bathroom. Stuff like that. It's really adorable.
I'm going to check it out. I'm going to find it and watch it. I'm sure it's on Amazon or one of those.
It's everywhere you download a movie, iTunes and Google and Amazon. It's called Space Station 76, and it's a dramedy, so it's kind of sad, and it's kind of funny, and it's really dark, kind of like like a Todd Solondz movie,
Yeah, those are the best movies. Those are pretty cool when comedies actually have like depth to them. So no, that's pretty cool. I'll check that out.
Thank you.
So another credit that's on there, we're bouncing around, which is great. But
oh yeah, I love it. It's very fun.
Where I remember you from when I first looked at your photo was Seinfeld. That was the first thing that I remembered you from. I'm like, I know that face. And then within like 2 seconds, I remember that. And my wife and I happened to be watching Grace and Frankie. And I'm like, I've seen him on the show. And then lo and behold, I confirmed on your IMDb, and I'm like, oh man.
It is incredible to get to be a part of that family of people who got to do that show. And I've never worked with a show creator who was so hands-on. And I love that about Jerry Seinfeld. First off, he went to every audition for every guest star role. So he was in the room at my very first audition. And then when I booked the job, this is the only time this has ever happened. I went to the set to film it. I went into makeup to get ready, and they said, once they do your hair, Mr. Seinfeld would like to see you, because he wanted to approve of what they did with my hair, just to make sure he liked the look of the character. And no one does that. And it's actually incredible and wonderful. And that's why the show is so good, is that he cared so much about every detail.
Saí da escola já com uma formação profissional no currículo? Metodologia por projetos? Preparação para o Enem? Atividades extras gratuitas, como acesso a oficinas, simulados, vagas de estágio, Olimpíadas do Conhecimento e muito mais? Esse é o Ensino Médio Técnico do Senac. Quer saber? Senac. Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino médio e saiba mais.
What was the audition process? Do you remember? Was there like actual like lines?
Yeah, I just did the lines. It's always the same. They give you the scene that you would do in the show, and you perform it for them. But but I've never had like the lead in the show be there in the room. But he really oversaw every aspect of that show.
Now, the reason I asked is because obviously Larry David was involved in that. And I've interviewed 3 or 4 people that auditioned for Curb. And they said when you audition, they basically give you like just a synopsis. Like there's really no lines.
And I auditioned for that several times, never got it. Larry's always in the room for that. And yeah, they give you that's very different because that's, an improv show. And yeah, he would play with you and throw out stuff, and you would try to, keep up. But I never was able to book that show.
Yeah, he's probably pretty intense. I don't know. I feel like I would be super intimidated. I know you do this for a living, but I feel like if I opened the door and he was the one that was sitting there, it's like, whoa. Like you didn't expect Jerry to be in there, right?
No. But I think I auditioned for that show a few times before I got it. So I knew Jerry was going to be in the room when I went in for the carpet cleaner.
Yeah.
And but I wasn't watching the show. I became a fan of the show later, so I wasn't as nervous as I would have been if I had been a huge fan of the show at the time.
Oh, okay.
Same thing happened when I was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I didn't even know the show when I auditioned and got the role. I got a recurring role on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I became a crazy fan after. And afterwards, I was like, I can't believe I was walking around all the sets of Sunnydale, and I didn't understand how amazing that was.
Was that the first time? What was your first time that you felt like, hey, I made it, I'm an actor? What series, or was it when you worked with a particular person?
Probably the day I was able to quit working a second job. Because I was catering even after I was, I catered in New York and LA. When I moved to LA, my first catering job was I got to cater Milton Berle's birthday. And I also catered a party at Michael Eisner's house.
Whoa.
And I once got to cater a Prince concert. Here's my favorite. I got to cater the premiere for Showgirls.
No way.
So I just somehow kept falling into all these fascinating moments in time. But the day that I realized, okay, I'm gonna not cater anymore was a really incredible day.
That's amazing. Do you remember what time that was about? Like what show you were on? Or?
You know, I think it was probably like one of the commercials I'd done that really, because, you know, I've done just hundreds of commercials, and they're wonderful to get. It really is like hitting the lottery, because number one, it's so hard to get them because so many people want that part and so many people audition for every role in a commercial, but also because they pay so damn much. Not as much anymore, but in the 90s, commercials, you could make a lot of money in commercials.
Really? So like that Got Milk ad that you were in?
Yeah, I mean, I made good money from that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because that was a whole bunch of commercials. That's the sweet one, when you get like a series of commercials in terms of money. But for me, my favorite kind of commercial to get was, you know, those commercials where they'll have like somebody's walking through a room and then all of a sudden they're on a beach and then all of a sudden they're on the moon.
Yeah.
You ever see those kind of commercials?
Oh, yeah.
That's the commercial you want, because they take forever to film. And I got one of them. And I tell you, they flew me. I mean, we filmed that commercial in New York, in Times Square, in Los Angeles, I don't remember. I mean, like I got those are the best commercials. And next time you see one, you'll go, oh wow, that guy had fun.
Yeah. Yeah, especially that it takes that long. You get to go to some cool places. Is there anywhere really cool that you got to, or exotic that you got to film a commercial?
I mean, I've filmed a commercial in South Africa, in Prague, in just, you know, sometimes I think they film a commercial just where they want to go on a vacation because someone else is paying. So yeah, I've been some incredible places doing commercials. Yep. I love doing commercials. You have the most incredible experiences. One commercial, they built the entire interior of a whale. I mean, and it looked real, a huge whale. And I was inside of it, and it had a giant tongue that moved. And outside the whale, you could see the ocean, and there was water, and they built the whole thing. So commercials are fascinating and always an adventure.
I couldn't even guess. What was that product?
That was for a cider called Strongbow. And
okay, I know
the
that.
cider is alcoholic. And at the end of the commercial, we suddenly appear at a bar soaking wet, as if the whole thing was a fantasy, but we're soaking wet. And I had to chug a whole glass of this cider and say my last line. And they handed me the cider, and I said, can I drink apple juice? They said, apple juice doesn't look like this cider. The only thing that looks like it is the actual cider. So I did about 12 takes where I had to drink an entire glass of cider. And at the end of that shoot, I could barely walk.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Especially they wouldn't let you do that. Hey, but at least all those exotic places you were able to go, like you said, they might have picked because, hey, I want to go to vacation in Prague or South Africa. At least they brought you along, so that's good.
Right, exactly. You're the lucky one that gets to tag along.
Yeah. So one of the movies, out of all the movies, you've been in so much different stuff, over like 115 credits. And I'm sure there's some that, not including commercials and other things that you've probably done. The only sequel you were in was you were the car rental agent in Meet the Fockers.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know what to, all I can say about that is, in terms of like an interesting story, is that you'll notice at the end of my scene, I toss him some keys. And that was terrifying because essentially I am throwing keys at Ben Stiller's face. I was just absolutely terrified that I would throw them too hard and he'd miss them and, cut his face and I would be sued. And that was not fun. Throwing keys at Ben Stiller's face is not fun. There was an interesting thing I noticed on set, though, was that Ben Stiller had an extra trailer, a huge workout trailer. And I asked about it. They said it's part of his contract. Whenever whenever he was on a film, they had this huge, it was big. It was like a whole gym in a trailer. Wow. But that's what you get when you're Ben Stiller.
That is true.
But it was great to be in it. It was really wonderful to be in that movie.
Yeah, that was a great sequel. I like that one because they showed they really took the De Niro's character and totally regressed him into a totally different, because he was such a tough guy in the first one, and then this one he's wearing a boob so he could feed the baby.
Yeah, yeah, that's an awesome movie.
You worked with Ben Stiller before in Mystery Men.
Yeah, but I barely.
Yeah,
I had a quick moment opposite him, and I don't even know if he was there. They may have just shot. They may have just shot me without him there because it was a whole bunch of us kind of parading in front of him. So I barely remember doing that movie. Yeah, and it was a very small part. But I was lucky. I worked a lot when I first got here, so that was incredible.
Yeah, and you're always working. When I scroll through your IMDb, it seems like every year there's something going on, and you've been in a lot of people I talked to that have been in series or movies. It's a lot of times things I've never heard of, but you were in a lot of big series.
Yeah, I pinched myself. I never dreamed that, as a kid in Ohio, I just thought I was going to be in Cats. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I had to do musical theater. And then it's been incredible. I started off kind of falling in love with the Carol Burnett show. And it was just last year I finally actually met her at a party. Not that I go to a lot of star-studded parties, but I was invited to the after party for a special she did, and I got to tell her, how much I love her. Not that it was anything special. I'm sure she hears it, 100 times a day, but the moment meant a lot to me.
That's amazing. And then just the fact, go back to, I know we touched on a little bit before, but Grace and Frankie, that show, if you think about people that are on that show.
That's incredible. It's the nicest set. And I forgot to mention, Martin Sheen is one of the nicest people I've ever worked with. He greets everyone with a hug in the morning, from every crew member. He's very kind, but everybody on that set is incredibly kind. And I'm so happy that I've gotten to hang out with Martin Sheen so much, and he's told some great stories. And I got to finally do a scene with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, and they were both really nice. And that was a real highlight, getting that little moment with Jane Fonda, because 9 to 5 is one of my top favorite movies. And that was really exciting, finally getting to interact with their characters.
No, definitely. And I just saw they got renewed for a 7th season today.
Yeah. I didn't do an episode last season because I was recurring on a TV show called Z Nation, and they asked me to do about 3 episodes, and I was just not available. And so because of that, they kind of just stopped needing me for the next season. So I don't know if I'll be asked back for the final season, but I think I did 3 seasons of it, and that was wonderful.
Yeah, no, that show's so good. And just the cast, talking about comedy people that are Lily Tomlin is up there too when you think about what she did.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah. She's incredible. But it's incredible when you get to be on a show that a lot of people love. It's really thrilling. And to get to have I had one episode that I got to do a lot of really great stuff where I fall off the stage and I break my leg, and that was really incredible because, that show means a lot to a lot of people. The first show I did like that was the TV show Ellen.
Oh yeah.
She had a sitcom in the 90s, and that was the first time I ever experienced, people stopping me in stores and I was very young. I had really only lived in LA for about a year when I got that, and I recurred on that show for 3 years. And that was maybe, you know, that was the moment I realized, wow, I'm a TV actor, because like wherever I'd go, people would recognize me. And it's simply because it was just such a popular show.
Oh yeah. And then it had like a huge moment on that show that, you know,
when she came out.
Yeah.
And I remember that episode during rehearsal, there was a bomb threat.
No way.
Yeah, and I remember standing out on the parking lot with Laura Dern, just looking at the stage and kind of being sort of shook that somebody would want to, you know, do that. But I love Laura Dern. Boy, she's awesome, and she was so nice.
Oh yeah. Her dad is like such a classic actor.
Wow, that's my career.
Well, no, there's a lot more than that. We're going to touch all of it. But just one more movie I want to mention, because years ago when this trailer came out, it was probably YouTube obviously was around for a while before that, but the movie Rubber.
Yeah.
That movie is pretty wild.
Well, I just love that people know about that movie, because I was sent that script and my manager said, no one wants to do this, so we don't mind if you pass. And I read that script and I was like, I'm in. Like, yes, I want to do this movie. I fell in love with it. And I was the first person they cast in it. And
wow. So you were the Patrick Wilson to that script.
No, because my name doesn't get a movie made, but I was the first person to get cast. And the director was just really great. We became friends. And, you know, what I love is just like so many people got it and love it. And I don't know if it's just that they like to get high and watch it, or if they find it as funny as I find it. But I'll never forget my first day on that set. You know, they had no money and we were shooting out in the middle of the desert. And I arrived at 5 a.m. before the sun came up, and it was freezing cold, and there was a windstorm, and I went down to where they were shooting and they weren't ready to start, and there was nowhere to hide from this crazy freezing cold windstorm. But there was this blanket they call I forget what they're called. Gaffers use them. Crew people use these heavy blankets just for different reasons on set. And I just hid under it, and I wasn't upset, and I just thought, I'm loving this adventure. Like, I don't know what it was. I was just ready for an adventure. And you would, you know, finish your day on that set and you would just pour the sand out of your shoes and go back to some really weird hotel room in the middle of nowhere. But I had one scene with a turkey, and the trainer said, you really can't train a turkey. All you can do is just sort of, you know, keep it in a room, you know. But we were getting ready to shoot, and this turkey took a shit, and I've never smelled anything like that. Like, it was so terrible. And I'm looking around the room because I'm the nearest person to it, thinking like, why is nobody else noticing this? And it's because it was such a thick smell that it traveled slowly across the room, and you would see each person. The smell would hit each person, and they would like gag, and we all had to just like leave the set. And that also happened to me on that milk ad. I did that Got Milk campaign, and there was a cow on a spaceship, and a perfectly white spaceship room, and it took a dump that like just splashed all over the room. And we just had to like step off the set for a half hour, and they had to mop it up.
Oh my God.
But that's what happens when you work with animals.
Yeah. No, with Rubber, it's like when you watch that movie, and you're right, like when you're high and you watch silly things like that. But I don't know what's like crazier, that I know what it is, but the tire can, you know, make a bunny explode, a rabbit explode, or that it peeps on a woman in a hotel room. Like, it's like, it's so crazy, but it worked.
There's something about his writing that's like almost like a dream, and it doesn't make sense, and it does at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a real artist. I have a lot of respect for him. And the amazing thing was, he wrote the lead role in his next movie for me and just offered it to me, which, I mean, that never happens but once in my life. And it was an incredible honor.
Well, that's because you were the one that took the leap of faith, and like, that's awesome.
Well, that movie was called Wrong, and it didn't probably do as well as Rubber, but it got good reviews, and I'm really proud of it.
Oh, that's cool. Wow. So This has been awesome. So one last question I have, because I've never thought about asking this before. So when you're in something and it's on TV, like say when you're on Ellen or one of the first shows you're on, it's 8:00. Do you tune in?
Oh yeah. Like I love watching what I do. And I've also come to learn that I'm always going to pretty much hate it when I first see it.
I'm sure.
And then I'll watch it a few more times and then I like it. Unless I'm really bad and then I still hate it. But I really get a kick out of seeing myself. And I'll never forget the very first time I was on national TV was this appearance on Ellen, the first time like on a sitcom. And my mom watched it in Ohio and I called her. I said, what did you think of my performance on Ellen? She goes, your sister and I discussed it and we're going to buy you a new jacket. That was her response. Because I guess she thought I was wearing my own clothes and she didn't like the jacket I wore. Anyway, but she's very proud of me. But yeah, that was a funny reaction.
But that's pretty cool. Now, I've always wanted to ask, I don't know why I never thought about asking it, but hey, I do the same thing. So I'm guilty. I interview people and I'll listen to this and I'll be like, oh man, that was so cool when he said that. So I get this
fun. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of actors hate watching themselves. I love it. I think it's a blast.
Yeah. Especially you pour your heart and soul into it.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun and I'm loving it and I'm grateful for it.
Well, you're going to keep going.
Thank you so much. I hope so. I tell you. Thank you. I'm about to.
I'm going to check out Space Station 76.
Thank you. I'd love that. I hope you like it.
Yeah, I'll shoot you my take on
my
it.
Baby. Well, thank you so much, Doug, for having me. This was super fun, and you really asked a lot of questions I've never been asked, and you really brought me down memory lane.
Man, Jack was awesome. Again, like he said, Seinfeld worked because Seinfeld was involved in every aspect. The audition, to see what his hair looked like afterwards. I love hearing Jack just talk about, having the opportunity to meet some of his idols, and work with them. And, Carol Burnett, and he was able to say, oh, I love you so much. And that's so, like he said, she's heard that a bunch, but that means so much for that person that is able to have that opportunity to talk to the person that they admired and, inspired them. And then Grace and Frankie, man, I really hope he's on the final season. Because when I talked with him, it was a while back now, because I lost, my laptop broke, a lot of the interviews went away, but I was lucky enough to find this one. So I hope you enjoyed it. And now your homework, meet the Fockers. It's free if you have TNT or TBS. Watch it on there. Dustin Hoffman crushes it as Bernie. And you're going to hear a lot of behind the scenes tidbits that we found during next week's review. So don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast. Follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And don't forget to check out our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.